Imagine traveling 20 years into the past and showing someone from 2005 a modern gaming PC. Well, if we set aside the RGB, I can promise you that at first glance, they'd think not much has changed. The basic components are all the same, everything is packed inside a case, and even the general layout is identical. I'd even go as far as to say that if you handed them the PC to use, they'd be able to do so and adapt to the modern setup in just a few minutes. The fact is that for decades, our gaming PCs haven't really changed at all. Yes, of course, there's been a massive increase in performance over 20 years, but what defines a PC, its core, its soul, let's say, remains basically the same. However, that's about to change. For years, I've been predicting a radical change in gaming PCs, but I must confess that I underestimated the magnitude and nature of this revolution. What's coming isn't just a simple evolution, but a complete metamorphosis that will transform the very heart of our gaming machines in terms of hardware, operating system, and the video games themselves. Imagine a PC that doesn't just process data, but thinks. A machine that doesn't just run games, but creates and adapts them in real time. A system that doesn't just store information, but understands and learns from it. Guys, this isn't science fiction. It's the immediate future of computing and gaming, and it's coming faster than we think. In this video, I'll take you on a journey through 3 of the most important dimensions of this revolution. First, we'll talk about the hardware that will challenge everything you thought you knew about PC performance. Second, the software that will blur the line between machine and human mind. And finally, third, how all of this is redefining even the physical form of our beloved gaming towers. Get ready to discover how artificial intelligence is changing everything we thought we knew about our PCs. How some of the oldest standards are disappearing, and even how what seemed like science fiction just a few months ago is becoming a reality. Alright, let's start with point number 1, the hardware, or as I like to call this part of the story, NVIDIA's evil plan. If we think about it, modern hardware is relatively the same as it was 2 decades ago or more. Yes, it's true that some parts have changed slightly. For example, we now have M.2 drives instead of hard drives, but both serve the same function. And if we look at other parts, like CPUs, motherboards, or RAM, they are so similar that I bet for those who aren't experts on the subject, it might even be hard to tell at a glance which of these parts are modern and which are older. A PC today has the same number of components as it did 20 years ago, and they all do exactly the same thing as they did in their origins, with their respective performance increases, obviously. However, there is one exception. Of all the PC components, there's one that has undergone some changes beyond just performance increases. A component that now can do things that just a few years ago it simply couldn't. And moreover, it's the piece that marked the beginning of this paradigm shift that is happening right now. Do you dare to guess which one is it? Pause the video right now and let me know in the comments before I tell you. Indeed, I'm talking about GPUs. You see, until recently, our GPUs or graphics processing unit were chips specialized in basically one thing, generating graphics through the rasterization method. Rasterization, very briefly, consists in taking a bunch of three-dimensional objects, let's say everything that would be in a world like of a video game, including characters, trees, plants, and so on, and converting those 3D objects into a 2D image that can be displayed on our PC screen. And like a painter obsessed with improving their technique, our graphics cards improved generation after generation, just as a painter would improve by using larger canvases or a wider color palette. But at the end of the day, we were still getting the same result, just with a little bit more detail, more beautiful, let's say. However, in 2018, something happened that would indirectly change the game forever. Imagine our painter, tired of his usual technique, discovers a way to capture the most important element in painting, light itself. Well, this was basically what the arrival of real-time ray tracing meant to our GPUs. Suddenly, we could simulate every ray of light, every reflection, every shadow. It was like going from seeing the world through a foggy window to suddenly opening the curtains and beholding reality in all its glory. But you know what they say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Ray tracing was like having a super sports car in the middle of the worst traffic jam you can imagine. We had the power to create incredibly realistic worlds, but at the cost of performance that brought even the most powerful PCs to their knees. And this is where our story takes an unexpected turn. This is why ray tracing indirectly changed our PCs forever, because now enters the true hero of our movie, DLSS, or Deep Learning Supersampling, and with it, some little artificial intelligence geniuses called tensor cores. Imagine DLSS as a team of two, an apprentice and a master artist. The apprentice, who lives inside NVIDIA supercomputers, spends millions of hours studying thousands of high-resolution images. It learns every detail, every nuance, every trick to make an image look spectacular. This is the deep learning part of the DLSS, where the tensor cores will act as the master artist. What does this mean? That while you play, your GPU can save a lot of performance by generating low-resolution images instead of a native resolution one. And our artists, the tensor cores, armed with the apprentice's knowledge and their own intelligence or artificial intelligence, take that basic image and transform it into a high-resolution masterpiece, all in a matter of milliseconds. So suddenly, from one generation to the next, our GPUs were not just pixel painting machines, but brains capable of making artistic decisions in real time. And here comes the most fascinating part. This was just the beginning. The tensor cores proved to be much more than simple helpers for DLSS. This same artist was not only good at creating images, but for many other tasks. Having tensor cores in our PCs was almost like discovering fire in the digital age. Suddenly we had in our hands, or rather in our PCs, a tool with almost unlimited potential. So imagine for a moment, what if we could apply this type of hardware with artificial intelligence not only to graphics but to game physics, to how we interact with NPCs, or even to areas not related at all to video games, like creating realistic images, generating creative text, and much, much more. Well, the possibilities are overwhelming, and we were just scratching the surface. Our GPUs are now ready to think, create, and revolutionize the way we interact with our games and applications. However, obviously this didn't happen overnight. In fact, NVIDIA was heavily criticized initially for including RT cores and tensor cores in our graphics cards, as they made their prices much higher. And at first, there were not only no applications that took advantage of these technologies, but even the games that did were very few. It was basically like having a helicopter to go to the supermarket, a total waste. And what's even worse, the first non-gaming applications that started to practically use artificial intelligence always did so through data centers, meaning that we interacted with them through the cloud, not through our hardware. However, having these technologies available to developers was like opening Pandora's box of software, and lately it has served to give us, the users, a glimpse of what was to come. From chatbots we could talk to as if they were human, like ChatGPT, to image editing with Photoshop, audio with Adobe Podcast, and even videos with Premiere, to creating photorealistic images or videos that are indistinguishable from reality, like Sora from OpenAI is doing recently. And this is just to mention a few examples. And partly thanks to this, and partly also because more and more games started using DLSS, the adoption of new GPUs with these new technologies grew exponentially. And this, gentlemen, believe it or not, was Jensen Huang's master plan. NVIDIA knew that DLSS was actually the least relevant aspect of these tensor cores, but they needed an excuse to shove them down through gamers' throats. And boy, did they succeed. Today, according to the Steam hardware survey, more than 50% of users use NVIDIA graphics cards with RTX, which obviously have tensor cores. Tensor cores that, by the way, are getting more and more powerful. Let's not forget that we are already on the third generation of graphics cards that include this technology, and we are very close to the fourth. This obviously encouraged AMD to also sink its claws into the world of artificial intelligence and to optimize its GPUs for AI workflows as well, resulting in the fact that today, the vast majority of gaming PCs have the ability to perform artificial intelligence tasks. But hey, the revolution didn't stop at GPUs. As if the computing universe had decided that it was time for a radical change, CPUs decided to join the AI party, and thus NPUs, or neural processing units, were born. And although I have to admit that this has first arrived on mobile devices, I am sure that in the near future we'll see it in all of our desktop computers. To understand this a little bit better, imagine that your CPU is a traditional food chef, in charge of preparing the food you consume on a daily basis. Well, in this example, the NPUs would be like chefs specialized in molecular gastronomy. NPUs are like small brains designed specifically for artificial intelligence tasks. But unlike tensor cores, which are only in GPUs and more specifically NVIDIA GPUs, NPUs are embedded in other types of systems, be it SoCs or system on a chip, like Apple's M series, or even in CPUs and APUs like AMD's new Ryzen 8700G and 8600G, the Ryzen AI or the Intel Core Ultra. And what's more, they are much more versatile than tensor cores, capable of performing a much wider range of AI tasks. Tasks ranging from natural language processing to voice recognition and complex data analysis, just to mention a few. Let's say you want to transcribe a meeting in real time, the NPU can take care of it. Need to analyze large amounts of data for your work? The NPU can do it for you. Want your PC to understand and respond to your voice commands more naturally? Well, the NPU makes it possible. And maybe you're saying to yourself, hey, my PC doesn't have NPUs and can do all of this. And maybe that's true, but NPUs are much better and extremely more efficient for those tasks than your CPU or GPU. So by having dedicated NPUs, we free up space on our processor and graphics cards to do what they're meant to do. As of today, the only desktop chips that have dedicated NPUs are the Ryzen 8600G and 8700G. However, there are already a large number of chips or SoCs for laptops from both AMD and Intel, and even from Snapdragon, that have NPUs. And at the enterprise level, the vast majority of CPUs are optimized for AI tasks, either with dedicated NPUs or with technologies like Intel Deep Learning Boost, which accelerate artificial intelligence workflows. And if these NPUs are so important, why is it taking too long to implement it in our PCs? Well, the reality is that, like I said before, most of us have GPUs that are already optimized for AI, and that can handle many of the tasks that NPUs do. However, that doesn't mean that they won't eventually arrive, since, as I told you before, these are more efficient both in terms of performance and power consumption than our graphics cards or CPUs. And they also allow each portion of the hardware to specialize in what they can do best. Well, as you can see, having a PC it's no longer just about having a machine that can process data faster, but about having an intelligent companion that understands our needs and adapts to them. Imagine turning on your PC and having it greet you by name, knowing exactly what applications you'll need based on your schedule for the day, and being able to anticipate your needs before you even express them. This future, it's no longer science fiction, it's knocking on our doors. And this is where we enter the second part of our story, because having all this hardware power, it's only half of the equation. The real revolution, or the part that really affects us the most, is how software will be able to take advantage of these new capabilities to completely transform the way we interact with our PCs. Let's think for a moment about how our relationship with computers has evolved over the years. There was a time when interacting with a PC meant memorizing complex commands and navigating through unintuitive interfaces. Then came graphical interfaces, which made computers more accessible to the average user. Now we are on the edge of another evolutionary leap, one that promises to make our PCs not just tools, but true intelligent companions. And watch out, because whether you're a casual user who surfs the internet and checks their emails, a gamer, a programmer who spends hours writing code, a graphic designer who brings visual ideas to life, a video editor who creates moving stories, or a musician composing the next hit, these advances in software are designed to revolutionize your PC experience. AI doesn't discriminate. It's here to enhance creativity and productivity for everyone. But let's get to the point, because some of these examples are going to blow your mind. And let's start with Windows, since the operating system is the main interface that allows us to interact with our PC. And boy, there are a lot of changes coming here. Copilot Plus is the head of this revolution we're talking about. Windows is no longer just an operating system waiting for your orders. Copilot Plus will be like an always alert personal assistant, learning from our habits and anticipating our needs. But let us think. What would a typical day look like with this new assistant? Let's see, well, you turn on your PC, and instead of the usual start screen, you're greeted with a personalized summary of your day, your important appointments, pending tasks, and even suggestions based on your usage history. Remember that presentation you've been working on and haven't finished? Well, Copilot Plus will automatically organize all the related files for you and even suggest some additional resources that might be useful for you to finish it. After you're done with that, you have to, send an email with an attached file that you cannot find? Well, with Copilot Plus's recall function, you no longer need to navigate through endless folders looking for that file. A simple description of what you're looking for, it's enough. Find the sales reports from the last quarter that included a graph with blue and red bars, and in seconds, the file will be in front of you. And it won't just work with files. You will be able to say things like, hey, I need to find a photo I took in Rome with the Colosseum in the background, and I was wearing a red beret. And the operating system will be able to find it in an instant. It's gonna be like having a personal librarian with a perfect memory and instant access to all your information. And don't worry, I'll talk to you about privacy in a bit. But organization and search are just the tip of the iceberg. Copilot Plus will be also a good creative ally. With the co-creator function, you'll be able to transform anything you can think of describing or even sketching in Paint into a spectacular image. You'll literally be able to bring your most crazy ideas to life. And moving on to another point, imagine being in a video call with colleagues from different countries, speaking different languages that you don't necessarily master perfectly. Well, not only will you be able to have real-time subtitles of the call, but this will be simultaneously translated into your language, allowing for fluid communication without obstacles. Basically, each participant in the meeting will have a personal interpreter integrated to their PCs. Hey, eso no significa que debas dejar de estudiar español, no seas tonto. And to clear your doubt before moving on from the operating system to the browsers, all these I've just told you about, at least in theory, should be done on your PC with your hardware, without even needing an internet connection, and without sending all your files and personal information to data centers. This is thanks, obviously, to the NPUs I told you about before, and in the future, also thanks to the specialized hardware of our GPUs. And the best thing about all this is that both our CPU and the GPU as such are free to fulfill their usual functions while we do everything else AI related. Amazing, right? But well, Windows isn't the only one taking AI to the next level. Web browsers are also experiencing a radical transformation. With Microsoft Edge, for example, you'll be able to ask questions about the content you're viewing. You will be able to summarize complex information and even help you draft messages based on the content that you're reading. And we're not talking about generic messages, not at all. You'll be able to specify the tone of the message, the format, and even its length. And if you're one of those who enjoy watching informative videos, like this one, Edge will allow you to improve the quality of the videos you're watching in real time, even if the original resolution isn't the best. You'll also be able to get transcript summaries and general ideas of the media content you consume with just one click. For its part, Google Chrome will have an AI-powered tab organizer, which will be like having a personal assistant that keeps your digital workspace impeccably organized. Chrome will automatically categorize your searches and activities into coherent groups, allowing you to maintain focus and productivity. Oh, and if you're one of those who doesn't like the light and dark themes of the browser because they're too generic and you prefer to feel cool, unique, and different, well, Chrome is developing a function where, through AI, you can describe to it what your perfect theme would look like, and you'll see it materialize before your eyes. Finally, Chrome is also integrating a writing assistant with a ChatGPT-style language model that can help you write a social media post, an email, or a review of that restaurant where you ate yesterday, which had the most delicious hamburger you've ever tried, with crispy bacon, melted cheddar cheese, and super juicy meat. Sorry, I digress. I'm very hungry right now. The point is that you'll be able to do all of this with the help of artificial intelligence. But moving on to the next thing, perhaps where AI is having the deepest impact is in the realm of creative software. Adobe, the titan of design and editing software, is taking AI-assisted creativity to new horizons. To give some specific examples, Photoshop is now capable of generating and modifying images based on textual transcriptions. It's like having a team of designers working for you with infinite corrections working at the speed of light. Want a couch in the middle of a forest with a panda bear sitting on it? Just describe it and watch as Photoshop materializes it in seconds. And it even gives you different versions of the same thing. And the magic doesn't stop there. With the In Paintings function, you'll be able to modify images in detail in the blink of an eye. Imagine you have a photo of someone holding an object, but you want to change that object for another. Well, now you can select the area, provide a reference image of the new object, and the AI will take care of integrating it coherently into the original image. And if you thought video editing had been left behind, think again. Premiere Pro is genuinely redefining what it means to be a video editor. The ability to add or remove objects in a footage with simple text commands is similar to having a special effects team at your disposal. Forgot to include a crucial element during filming? No problem. Premiere Pro can add it in such a realistic way that no one would notice the difference. Well, let's see. Not quite like that, because many of these things are just coming out, so they're not perfect yet. But think that over time, they're going to keep getting better and better and better. Another fascinating function of Premiere is the generative extension. Imagine you need a shot to last a few seconds longer to fit perfectly into your edit. Well, instead of having to slow down the clip, which could result in unnatural movement, the AI can generate new frames that can extend the duration of the clip in a fluid and natural way. And for those moments when you need to remove something from the footage, whether it's a microphone that's stuck into the shot or a copyrighted logo, Premiere Pro will offer an AI-based object removal tool that promises to make this process faster and more precise than ever. But finally, the most amazing thing is that soon, we'll all have the ability within Premiere Pro to generate video from text. Imagine you're editing a video and you realize you forgot to take a general shot of the place where you were. With this new feature, you could simply write a description of what you need and the AI would generate the footage for you. Or let's say you don't have enough money to buy or rent a drone to film the obelisk of Buenos Aires, you'll be able to generate a super realistic image without spending a penny. Well, that's a penny more than what you'll already pay for the Adobe membership. The point is that it's almost like having a virtual production team capable of creating content on demand. And for the rest of the applications, we have plenty of tangible examples. Don't worry. There are already tools for programmers that not only correct code with AI, but even generate it from scratch. Musicians and audio producers will be able to generate melodies, chord progressions, or even complete tracks with a simple order specifying what they need. In the field of education, we could soon see virtual teachers adapting their way of teaching children according to the specific needs of each one. People just thinking about this is crazy. But the craziest thing is that we're only scratching the surface. And as you can see, all these innovations are fundamentally transforming the way we interact with our PCs. It's no longer just about executing commands or navigating menus. We're entering an era where our computers will be able to understand us and collaborate with us in ways we could only dream before. Now, with all this processing power and these new software capabilities, it's natural to wonder, how will this affect the physical design of our PCs? Will we continue to use the same towers as always, or will we see radical changes in the form and function of our computers? And the answer to that is yes and no. But let me explain a little better. On one hand, there are components that are literally changing their format thanks to the need to optimize hardware for artificial intelligence. An example of this is the new CAM2 memory standard. In case you didn't know, this was originally developed by Dell as a more compact alternative to SO-DIMM memories for laptops. The idea behind its development was to be able to offer replaceable memories in super compact laptops, where usually the only alternative was to have the modules soldered. Yeah, like in MacBook Airs, for example. So from the start, this is already wonderful. However, it evolved to much more than that, and today we can already see different motherboard manufacturers implementing it for PCs, and the reasons are several. To begin with, sizing PCs matters too. By having a module of this style, we don't have to worry at all about the compatibility of our air cooler, as it will be impossible for it to clash with the RAM. But more importantly, having a single module instead of 2 or 4 means that the latency between the RAM and the CPU is greatly reduced. So this is awesome for artificial intelligence related workflows. And if this wasn't enough, they consume much less energy than common RAM, heat up less, and are faster. So basically the only disadvantage they have is that for now, if you want to add more RAM to your PC, with CAM2 you'd have to change the entire module instead of being able to buy additional modules in the future. However, as of right now, each module has up to 128 gigs. So for conventional and not so conventional usage, it's gonna be great. And before you ask, yes, they support dual channel in a single module. Another thing that it's indirectly changing is power consumption. And while this isn't a physical change as such, I find it interesting to mention, as this Computex I saw that basically all power supply manufacturers were coming out with very high wattage power supplies, be it MSI with this 1600 watt Beast, or Thermaltake with these others over here of 1650 watts, or even Cooler Master, which presented 2000 and 3000 watt power supplies in its booth. A crazy thing. And the most interesting thing about all this is that what all of these power supplies had in common is that they had at least two 16-pin connectors for GPUs. So I wouldn't be shocked if the next physical change we see in our PCs is that the new top-of-the-line NVIDIA graphics cards use two of these connectors. If you want my advice, if you're thinking of upgrading as soon as the 5090 comes out, keep a fire extinguisher near your PC, just in case. By the way, the biggest rumor about these new GPUs, other than the high power consumption, is that they're going to be beasts in everything related to artificial intelligence work. Finally, another physical change that I want to talk about, although it's not really related to AI as such, is the fact that the motherboard standard with the connectors in the back, very much against my prediction, was everywhere this year in Computex. And not only in motherboards, like this one we see here from MSI, but basically all the new cases we saw, be it from Deepcool, Thermaltake, Cooler Master, Corsair, are being compatible with all standards, including ASUS, Aorus, or MSI, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about compatibility problems. I honestly thought this would be just a cool short trend and that's it, but apparently it's here to stay. Now, having said all this, my original prediction about how the PC was going to physically change in the coming years was quite wrong. My theory was that basically all the processing capacity of our PCs was going to move to data centers to be done remotely. So I believed that in the future we would see smaller and smaller computers, and I pictured us paying less for hardware and more for cloud services. However, this doesn't seem to be the case, since AI is coming to our PCs. So, at least in its general format, the tower with big internal components that we've been having for more than 20 years could continue the same for another 20 more, with the only difference being that now it will be able to perform artificial intelligence tasks on its own. Now, what I'm really looking forward to know is, what artificial intelligence applications do you use today? How has AI made your life easier or harder? Why not? What function are you looking forward to the most? And perhaps more importantly, are you afraid or respectful of AI? Do you think that it could be the end of many professions and that it could harm us in any way as a human race? Let's debate in the comments. As always, my name is Wayan, I send you a big hug, and I'll see you in the next video.